Hello, hello, hello. How are you doing? It's Ed here with the last in our weekly live streams, okay? So every day this week we've had a wee live stream at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to have a look at some musical skills. And today, for Friday's one, it's been a question mark so far, but we've had most votes on our community poll for oral test, help, listening, yeah? Just doing a bit more listening. We've done some already this week. So that word oral, which I'm not a big fan of, I have to say. But anyway, listening. It seems to be that, especially on the Dundee Piano channel, there's a lot of interest in the listening and improvements for your skills for listening. Okay. Over the years, there's been the mightiest number of people looking for help on that. So today we're going to have a roundup of some of the listening tips we've looked at on the other live streams. Plus, we'll have a look further ahead onto grade 6 and grade 7. Okay, so earlier in the week we had grade 1 and 2, then we had 3 to 5. Now we're looking at 6 and 7, just to see what changes as you go up through the different grades and what you can do to help your ears improve in a particular way. The best thing really is listening to lots of music and trying to sing back or clap along or tap along or even play along if you want to play along on your instrument. That's the best way to improve your ear. So as a quick recap, singing along with scales is a great tip. Compared to la 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 la. So as you sing, hopefully you're listening as well, and you're feeding back and improving how you hear and how you sing those particular notes, and you can compare them as you listen with what you're hearing from the instrument, and then you can compare to what your voice is singing, and you can get better at that. Also, rhythm. It's harder to do if you're playing it yourself, but if you listen to music, you can tap along and get the hang of what rhythm it is. Maybe what pulse it has. Maybe is a 2 or a 3 or a 4 or a 5 or a 6 or a 7. I don't know. There's all kinds of different rhythms. And as we go into grade 6 and grade 7 pieces, you're listening out for 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, or 6, 8 times. So you're adding more variety to what range of pulses you can listen for. Anyway, let's have a wee quick zoom around on grade 6 and 7. I've recently added videos to the channel for both of those levels for all the different elements that you're listening out for. And one of them is picking out a 2-part melody and maybe singing back either the upper one or the lower one. I'll give you an example. For example, here's one, 2 parts. Let me just start that again. It's a tricky one. Yeah. You can hopefully hear the minor sound to it, yeah. I have to be honest, I wasn't so good at playing that. But the idea there is you hear it and then you sing the upper part of the phrase. La. The thing is, there was a lower part there with a lot of quavers going on, so it might distract you. It certainly distracted me trying to play the 2 of them. But you're trying to remember and sing and recall the or whatever it was, yeah, something like that. You get the idea. So ignoring the lower harmony part and singing the higher part. Yeah. Let's find an easier one for me to play. What have we got here? Here's one. And for a second time, just so you can hear it. La 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 la. Yeah, that was right. Yeah, easier that one, to be honest. But you can hear the melody going up and then down with the leading note in there as well. So as you listen to two-part harmonies like that, your ears, you're training your ears to be drawn to one particular side, whether it's the higher or the lower part. Yeah, I think in grade 7 they go the other way. The lower part, yeah. So for example, here's one. Okay, again. La 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 la, etc. Yeah, so it's a bit of a lower melody. You're trying to ignore that high melody, which is more prominent, to be honest, but you're listening a bit closer to what goes on underneath as the harmony part. Yeah, as I say, there's plenty of videos where you can practice that listening and singing back. Try it with music that you listen to, any music. Try and pick out the harmony line, the bass line, the melody line. See if you can hear the different parts of the music you can hear and sing them back or tap the rhythm out. Yeah, rhythm's another thing that you'll be listening out for. So for example, can you hear if there's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kind of rhythm going on? Yeah, here's one here. For example, let's have a go. It's maybe tricky to find the rhythm or the pulse in a song like that. It's definitely not a 3 because it's got quite a steady, even pulse. Is that a 2 or a 4? It could be a very slow 2, but it's more likely to be a 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, yeah. So there's a kind of pulse that you'll be listening out for. Let's have a listen to something else and see what you can pick up on these kind of rhythms. Here, how about this tune here? Let's listen to this one. You get the idea? Hopefully within a few bars you're getting to hear the ba ba dum bum ba one. Dun, 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 1 and a 2 and a 2 and a. Now, if a piece has a 1 and a 2 in it, it's probably a 6/8, yeah, which it is in this case. So you might be counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, but more likely you're counting 1 and a 2 in it because there's 2 strong beats and they each have 3 within them. Yeah, that's where you get your 6, 2 by 3. Yeah, so it's a bit trickier to hear than a 2 or a 3 or a 4 when you're getting out to 6, where you up. Okay, but that's an example of something that you might be listening for the pulse of. Now, let's talk a little bit about cadences, or more generally, chord changes. If you hear something like this. You can hopefully hear it goes back to the first chord again. But just before that, it had a la, la, so it had the la. They call that a perfect cadence when it's got the 5th chord, the dominant chord. La, la. There's your different chords here. So yeah, one of the things they look for at grade 6 is the cadence. Let's find one of them. Is it going to be perfect or imperfect? So it's like a 50-50. Here's an example for hopefully you can hear that goes back to where it started. La, so it's a perfect, yeah. It's ending perfectly, as they might say. Let's find another one. Imperfect, yeah. La, it's not quite done. It's actually on the fifth, it's on the dominant now. And finally, let's find another one. Okay, what about this one? Again, unfinished, imperfect chord. So the cadence is the chord change that defines whether it's perfectly done or imperfectly not quite done, yeah? And at grade 6, you've got those two options. At grade 7, you've got an extra option as well, where it may be interrupted. Now, what's an interrupted one? It's hard to find just one on its own by looking at it. You can hear them when they happen. Let's find one that's a bit more interrupted. Yeah. That's where it's not perfect and it's not imperfect. It's kind of halfway through. All right, let's hear this one. Da, 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 da. Yeah, so it's not quite done, and it's not finishing on the dominant. In this case, it's on the minor key, the second. Oh no, it's the relative. It's the second, the relative minor. So you're somewhere between 1 and 5, or in a different chord altogether. The interrupted cadence does what it says. It's interrupted in the middle of a phrase. And the other question is, can you identify those chords? Now we're getting into kind of challenging skills, I suppose. Just dropped my paper here. But you'd be listening very closely. You get to hear these things twice, so you've got plenty of opportunity to find and pinpoint those chords. Is it the first chord? Is it the tonic? Is it the dominant, which is probably the second easiest one? The fifth? Or is it somewhere between the two? Or is it maybe the relative minor? And to prepare your ears for that, tips are listening to your first chord, your tonic, and comparing it and contrasting it to the other ones, like la, la, maybe the relative minor, la, 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 the fourth, the subdominant, they call that one. Or what else have we got? What about the third on the minor? Medium. There you go. Or the second on the minor. Supertonic. So get your ear used to what these chords are, and without looking, you can start to kind of connect what the chord is, how far from the tonic it is, and how you'd identify it. So you might call it tonic, dominant, relative minor. There's another name for it, submedian. Or you might be 1, 5, 6, 4, whatever number wise. Or you might even just call it by its name if it's C, G, A minor, F major, etc. So getting familiar with these things, like anything, you get better by the more practice you can get with them. Here's another thing we bring in at some point, singing from a score. But instead of the earlier grades where you only have one note, here you have an accompaniment part and a vocal line above. Now, if you've done singing before, this might be fairly straightforward for you, reading from the score. If you've not, it might be a bit challenging, so get some practice doing that. And I recommend finding your tonic. So in this case, we've got one in D. La, 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 la. La, 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 la. That was quite good, actually. I've not done that one before. But you've got your different gaps, like we said earlier, steps, skips, jumps. leaps, and really big leaps, even bigger than that. So the different intervals from the tonic, la, there's a sixth, so it's even going quite far in these examples. You're getting your ear and your voice, I suppose, trained to sing and identify these kind of intervals. Let's find something else that's a bit different. So you might have something. Now the challenge that's added in if you have an accompaniment is they'll be playing probably a lot of different notes. So you've got to kind of block that out, ignore what they're playing, and sing the melody. La 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 la. Yeah, cool. There's an octave in the end of that one. La la. So practice and singing anything from a second all the way up to an octave from a particular key. And for a wee bit of insight, I used to be tone deaf seemingly, so if I can do it, Andy can do it. If you're not able to sing at the moment, you can always learn how to do that from practicing. Yeah. Right. I'm about to finish up, I think, soon, because I'm going to wrap up our week of live streams with this one. And I think I'm going to continue next week more with recorded videos, because that's where I've been working so far, and they seem to be a lot better received than live streams, to be honest, and they're less constraining, and you can go back and revisit them at different times. But I would welcome comments from anybody who's been watching over the course of the week, and happy to do more online videos for helping with music. But I think I'm going to focus more of my attention on my online lessons that I'm teaching one-to-one, and also recording specific videos for specific things, which I think are probably easier to work with and more viewable because they're shorter and more focused. Anyway, the live stream was just a wee experiment for this week to see how it worked, and for me to get used to the technology, I think, and see if it was something that suited me. But thanks for tuning in if you have been. Remember, you can always watch all the replays. That's the cool thing. The replays are stored on YouTube on the channel, not far away from the actual recorded videos, which we have on there as well. So I welcome comments. We've not got any today, but I do welcome comments and feedback on the live streams and the other videos. But the main thing I think is enjoy the music, yeah. And we've been hearing a lot about ear training and listening and spotting patterns. And I think the more you can do that with music, the better you can get a grasp of it and enjoy it as well as understand it at the same time. Okay, thanks for watching. I'm going to sign off for now. Bye-bye for now. Enjoy your day.